Boom. Therapy. There are certain statements you never want to hear come out of your therapist's mouth. I'm doubling your rate. Man, I've never heard anything like that before. I believe you and you alone are at fault for the misery of your childhood. I suspect you experienced some sort of perceived sexual trauma when you were young, possibly pre-verbal, which is keeping you from having positive intimate experiences. One might expect the latter, which I had the pleasure of hearing a couple years ago, to be followed by the psychologist version of the Chris Rock mic drop. I picture this 60-something, white-haired, bescarved lady throwing her hands in the air and walking out of the room with a boom! Analyzed. In my case, she had the decency to remain seated, though I thankfully didn't spend the next year giving sidelong glances to uncles and older cousins. I was left with the gnawing feeling of being betrayed by my memory, aware that if she were right, and she'd never been anything but, and my body and mind were working this hard to keep me from remembering it, whatever it was likely pretty awful. Enter Bike Guy. Bike Guy was an internet dating find, one of those guys who rides around the city in matching lycra-based tops and bottoms. What happens when a guy puts on one of those outfits? Do they constrain their balls so much, thrust their junk so far up into their body cavity, that they have no choice but to become arrogant, dispassionate cretins, careening too close to pedestrians, hogging bike lanes, and yelling, "On your left," too loud and too late to be courteous? Despite his character flaws, Bike Guy also happened to be puckishly handsome, lean, muscular, and, most importantly, interested. To say Bike Guy and I dated would be to grossly overstate what Bike Guy and I did. To even say we went out would be inaccurate, because truly we just stayed in. After a series of emails, one honest-to-God date, and a follow-up of G-chats that quickly spiraled into the obscene, he biked his skinny little biker butt over to my apartment on a couple chilly October nights. Sorry, no details. Other than, despite his tiny frame, Bike Guy had a lot to stuff in his lycra. Let's leave it at that. As I explained to my therapist shortly after our evenings together, it's not that I was in excruciating pain so much as I felt overwhelmed. Like the whole experience of sleeping with him was too much to, forgive me, take in. She responded without blinking. "Did you feel like you were going to die?" Now, if one of my girlfriends had asked me this, I would have chuckled, probably, or rolled my eyes. But where my therapist asked me this, I instead burst into uncontrollable, choking, gasping sobs. So then, yes? Mic drop. She high-fives herself. So I cry for a while, don't talk a whole lot, and then suddenly this memory floats into view and I decide to tell it. It's not something I ever repressed. It's an experience that over the years had occasionally surfaced in the bobbing flotsam of my memory swamp. I just never assigned any significance to it. But at that moment, in this context, I felt compelled to mention it. I'm little. Maybe 4. I've been getting chronic urinary tract infections. Because of these UTIs, I find myself on a gurney, naked from the waist down, revealed by what covers me. A piece of paper with a square hole cut out, exposing the parts of me I'd most prefer to keep hidden. My mom's there. A couple female nurses are there. A man is there. I don't know what the man is doing exactly, but it involves sharp pain down there. And he's getting increasingly frustrated with me. I am crying. I am, as my mother would later say, not cooperating. There might be some sort of restraint system. After numerous failed attempts to do whatever it is he's trying to do, he gives up, and I remember knowing I've done something wrong. Failed some sort of test. There is a transition to another exam, a sonogram, this one administered by a nice lady. And nothing hurts about that. The gel is warm and the wand they use is gentle and round and non-invasive. The contrast of sharp versus dull sticks out in my memory. And that's it. My therapist believes my little kid self experienced this, whatever this was, as a rape trauma. And the panic attacks and discomfort with sex stem from that. Trauma I get, but rape? Come on, that's a big assertion. But since neither of us know what the hell this was, she suggests I do some digging to see if I can learn anything about the mystery procedure. Conveniently, that night I have dinner with one of my best friends, who happens to be a neonatal intensive care nurse, and I ask her if any of those memories of mine add up to a procedure she's heard of. I barely finish a sentence before she calmly says, "Oh sure, of course, avoiding cystourethrogram or VCUG with renal ultrasound." Sure, of course. Armed with new knowledge and a name, I go home and do what I do best. Google. Just for the hell of it, just to see if this crazy, insane rape trauma theory is all it's cracked up to be, I Google VCUG rape. Lo and behold, there have been a number of studies examining language, behavior, and memory accuracy of children suffering from sexual PTSD, wherein rather than put a child who was raped through the stress of interviews on the subject, they instead work with children who have undergone a VCUG because they are the most analogous population to rape victims. Mic drop. Bike Guy turned out to be even more of a jerk than his outfits predicted, and I never saw him again after our 2 nights together. But at least he gave me a gift of awareness. I wish I could say as soon as the trauma was unearthed from my unconscious, I was relieved of the burden and have had nothing but constant, amazing sex and deep, meaningful connection in the last years since it all transpired, but no dice. It has been a period of healing and self-investigation, with some attempts at connection peppered around, still hampered by fear and insecurity. But hey, that's 90% of life anyway. I found a video made by a medical center that explains the procedure to parents and instructs them on how to talk about it with their children. If only we had YouTube in the 80s. What shook me most emotionally was the care and communication the staff depicted in the video. Maybe back in 1986, this dude got a parking ticket in the morning, and a stale muffin and a rotten orange, and then someone stepped on his foot, and then there was no toilet paper, and then he got a bill for unpaid taxes, and then his partner called and yelled at him, and then he found out his mom was in the hospital, and then he stepped into my examination room. Our actions have consequence, not just at the moment, but rippling through time and between strangers who will never meet. In 1986, a man had a bad day and attempted a VCUG on a terrified child. And in 2012, a 30-year-old woman trembled on her therapist's chair, discovering she's unconsciously viewed every sexual partner she's ever had as the doctor telling her if she's being bad or good. Be nice to people today. Be nice to people every day. But especially if you're going to catheterize a 4-year-old.